I would like at first to thank Professor Zannini. I am definitely very much thankful for this introduction. Very sophisticated, I have to say, yeah, because it's not, usual that, somebody could actually introduce and moderate, actually, you point, the main elements of my book, so the main area of social epistemology and yeah, the shared opinion that there is the crucial dilemma today between the democracy and the truth. So I'm really thankful for the invitation, for the hospitality, from your kind words at the beginning. I would like also to thank to all of you, to be here, and I would like also to thank to my discussant, also to Professor Andrea and Gabriele. Also allow me to say that I am really very much thankful to Luca, who organized all this, Luca, and who is very much helpful and the crucial person also for this book from my point of view. Thank you, Luca. Yes, I prepared a presentation because I think that probably I can be better in communicate the main ideas of my book, through the presentation. But please, I'm completely open that you stop me at any moment, ask me for clarification, to intervene at any point you think that probably you need to say something about that. So please feel free, just to ask me if you think that it's necessary that we clarify or discuss some specific issue during my presentation. I'm also sorry because I will present in English. I'm so sorry I can't follow, Italian, but unfortunately I'm not, shame on me, too good and too courage to speak Italian. Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, here is the plan of my presentation, just to have some kind of orientation. At first, I will start with kind of introduction. I would like to explain my motivation for this topic. Then I would like to try very shortly to explain, this conflict about which I am actually discussing my book, the conflict between epistemic and political justification of democracy. So this is the question of democracy and truth dilemma. And actually, I would like to clarify my position is a kind of hybrid view or the hybrid viewpoint. I would like to stress, actually, in my book and also in my presentation, how important is for me the epistemic justification of democracy. So not only political and ethical justification, but epistemic justification. And I would like to share with you some of my doubts concerning the idea that there is some invisible hand in democracy or of democracy in producing the good decisions, the decisions of the, some epistemic quality. So I think that we need to debate about that. And I would like to put a question, what about experts? And what is the role of experts in the democracy? And finally, I would like to very shortly explain my proposal how democracy actually, or democracy which we have now, how can it be improved, and I'll try to propose the reliability democracy as probably, of course, democracy, but some kind of democracy that actually guarantee, according to my opinion, more quality, more epistemic quality of our final decisions. And at the beginning, I can say, because this is always the main topic of discussion after all, that actually I would like to defend some specific and more important role of experts in the democracy or in decision-making process. So what actually Professor Zannini said, my idea and all these book actually belongs not only to the social epistemology, but to something now that is discussed very much to applied or regulative epistemology. So not only theoretical, and epistemology is mostly theoretical, but some different approach to the epistemology. So concerning my motivation, I will start actually from, let's say, identifying, the crisis of democracy, because actually we are all witnesses of radicalization of the different kinds of terrorism, fundamentalism, sovereignism, xenophobia, nationalism, chauvinism, and the other isms, that actually show us that something is wrong with democracy. What happens? How it is possible that in the best possible, let us say, social arrangement, we have today such a deviant or such a deviant phenomena. Also, I'll start to think about the phenomena like Trump, Brexit, Hungary, Poland, and the other countries. So the contemporary report of the freedom in the world or in the human rights in the world actually reported about, of the retreat of democracy, of the threat for the human rights, of the threat for the freedom, and usually, this Trump, Brexit, Hungary, Poland, and the other countries actually mentioned there, or other different kinds of populism. And finally, my third, let us say, immediate third motivation is how to cope with these pseudo-scientific movements, also present in democracy. Anti-vaxxers, creationism, climate change deniers. After all, now, after the Davos and, the Trump's speech, also, he stressed that there is the exaggerated here, and we are all witnesses of the Australia. So we have the different phenomena, very contemporary phenomena that actually, according to my opinion, said to us that something is wrong, in our societies, probably something is wrong with democracy. So my question is whether we have too much democracy or too little real democracy. And because my background is epistemology, actually, so dealing with knowledge, with beliefs, with truth, or the justification. My idea is that this crisis of democracy actually has something with the knowledge. It's something with ignorance, So I like very much, and this is the motto of my book, that the most violent element in society is ignorance. So according to my opinion, there is something, connected, we have the culture of ignorance in this very point, and on the other side, the crisis of democracy. So I here try to elaborate this stance or to make it more contemporary of the Emma Goldman, while violence is consistently faced with anonymous condemnation, the ignorance from which it stems remain extant from direct philosophical criticism with the excuse that there is no person without biases and everyone's reasons are, due to political equality and freedom, equally good. So I would like to explain more, what I'm thinking when I'm thinking about and talking about the ignorance and the culture of ignorance. And actually, I rely here, and I do not mention actually in my book this, but it's after all, and for the sake of this presentation, I think that this is very important because it's good. There is articulated in the book of De Nicola, the culture, the understanding of ignorance. You know, actually, he is talking about the culture of ignorance. And he said that the culture of ignorance has become a viable perspective, one celebrated as an ideological stance. Or also, he said, we are left to wonder with Scott Adams' cartoon character Dilbert, when did ignorance become a point of view? Yeah. Or the quotation from his book, Understanding Ignorance, the culture of ignorance reflects an elevation of will over reason, the loss of credible concept of objectivity, and radical change in democratic epistemology. So the culture of ignorance discounts the value of authority, the value of experts, the value of expertise in favor of shared opinion. So my idea is that, and this is actually my motivation, it seems to me that the crisis of democracy is a kind of crisis of enlightenment and actually has something with the culture of ignorance. So I would like now to explain more, you know, this conflict and why I think that there is a kind of conflict between political values and epistemic values, or epistemic and political justification of democracy. So I think that all phenomena I mentioned before actually show us that the citizens' will expressed at democratic elections or referenda does not necessarily, automatically, always generate the decisions of the highest epistemic quality. So it seems to me that participation, inclusiveness, so ideas, these biases, is resources, that about the values of the difference, of the diversities of evidences, reasons, these all valuable things and valuable procedures, actually, it seems to me that they do not necessarily always automatically generate the decisions of the highest epistemic quality for citizens, not generally or objectively or for theoretical reasons, but the best and the highest quality decisions for the people. So it seems to me that it's pretty obvious that democratic procedures, as we already actually had, do not produce, you know, the epistemic quality we actually expected, that the participation and inclusiveness will or would produce. So in that, I see a kind of conflict between the political and epistemic values and the truth. I use the notion of truth not precisely in epistemological sense, and I do not want now to enter in the debate about the truth, but this is some kind of general notion that cover, you know, as a generic term for epistemic quality. Problem solving, evidence-based, justification, rationality, truth sensitivity, truth conductiveness. So it seems to me that truth, so the epistemic quality, is not a necessary consequence of democratic, fair procedures based on participation and inclusiveness, so the equality and the freedom of each citizen. So even if we have, you know, satisfied these democratic desiderata, you know, I do not think that that this kind of desiderata will produce the epistemic quality. So what is my point is that democracy, if it is justified system, need to be justified not only politically but also epistemically. Yeah. So democracy as a social system has to ensure the political quality of decisions based on freedom and equality. I do not want to put in question in any moment that the freedom and equality is virtues, political virtues. But also I think that democracy needs to ensure the epistemic quality of decision. Not only political quality, but also epistemic quality of decisions. So legitimacy of democracy depends, according to me, in the same extent on epistemic quality of decisions and political quality. So I would like to say that this conflict is not so unsolvable conflict. Yeah, I just would like, to say we need to be aware that there is the conflict, that there is no automatic, production there's no automatism generation between the political virtues and the epistemic ways of virtues, but we need, at some way to harmonize political and the epistemic virtues or political and epistemic desiderata. So I just want very briefly to say this is some very philosophical part, because in my book, actually, I made some shifts, that my topic, as you actually said, need to actually require that I shift from some traditional standard analytical epistemology towards some new, also philosophical standpoints. So I'm going from the truth monism, predominant in the traditional analytical philosophy, to a pluralism of epistemic values. And I rely on Quanvig and Pritchard. So instead of truth as the unique and ultimate epistemic value, different kinds of epistemic achievements are valuable, but without collapsing into epistemic relativism and nihilism. And this shift is necessary to understand my position. Also, I move from individual to social epistemology, and the crucial philosophical figure here is Alvin Goldman. So I appreciate actually the mostly postmodern idea, but now it's wide accepted, that about the socially situated cognizer. So this is this shift, and the shift from, let us say, traditional epistemology to virtue epistemology, and crucial authorities here is, for me, Linda Zagzebski or Greco or Sosa. So this is a new approach in epistemology that actually put the epistemic agent in the center of normative evaluations. So not the proposition or the truth of proposition, but the target of evaluation is actually the epistemic agent, we, cognizer. So just, for your information, I do not want to go in that, but if you would like, after to discuss that, I would be happy to do with you. So some shifts. As I mentioned before, so my viewpoint is kind of a hybrid viewpoint, because I would like to debate at the same time about the political virtues and the epistemic virtues. I do not want to keep them isolated, because it seems to me that we have phenomena, we have social problems that actually need, to be bring together, that we think and talk about the harmonization of political and the epistemic virtues. I'm not definitely alone. There is a lot of philosophers who try to harmonize political and epistemic virtues. And according to my opinion, there is actually three approaches to this kind of harmonization. But I think that the most predominant attempts to harmonize political and epistemic values actually fail to do that. The first is, for instance, from Rawls to Fabian Peter, Estlund, Kitcher, Miranda Fricker. I think they try to harmonize, but actually they offer to us some kind of reducing the epistemological and epistemic values to political values. So according to my opinion, to them, we have the political instrumentalism. They instrumentalize the epistemic values, the truth, for the political virtues. So when we have the final debate, they will always, prefer that we have the just society, that we have political virtues, and they would like, to sacrifice the epistemic values, the truth. On the other side, we have the philosophers who would like to sacrifice the political virtues to the epistemic virtues. For instance, Goldman. In the case of conflict between the political and epistemic value, they will sacrifice, the political values, the values of autonomy, the value of freedom of the citizens for the sake of rationality. For instance, we have in Croatia one very popular philosopher he was in King's College, now he's in Hong Kong, the Neven Sesardić, who actually think that political correctness is not necessary, but that we need to search for the truth, for the argumentation, for the reasons, and if it assume a kind of political incorrectness, you need to sacrifice the political correctness for the sake of truth. For instance, he would like to justify the kind of discrimination because the final epistemic results will be better. My point is hybrid standpoints, so I would like to say we cannot reduce political virtues on epistemic, nor epistemic virtues to political. So we cannot reduce, to sacrifice democracy to truth, but not also the truth to the democracy. So we need a kind of hybrid standpoint, and I'll try to explain in the book how it is possible to combine these two kinds of virtues. And actually, I propose a kind of contextualism and localism as the point. I discuss in the book several. I do not want to enter now because I do not want to be too extensive. Some case studies, conflict between epistemic and ethical, between epistemic and political and ethical virtues. For instance, epistemic paternalism. It's very evident example in which you can, decide, from which side you would like, to choose, or affirmative action program, in which, it is proposed that we sacrifice some epistemic values for the political correctness, or epistemocracy, in which we sacrifice, some democratic values for the sake of expertise. So I just want I do not want to spend so much time here, because I plan to share with you some other of my ideas. My point is hybrid standpoints, so something between elitism and egalitarianism. I just want to be probably more concrete, just to share with you, some more evident situation in which we have this dilemma between democracy and truth, and try to offer, after all, my solution. Probably all of you know for the phenomena wisdom of crowds. Wisdom of crowds from ancient Greece and the Enlightenment to recent debates about deliberative democracy, but also within pop cultural phenomena, wikis, crowdsourcing, popularity-based search, algorithms. It has been held that what ordinary people lack in personal knowledge, they make up for in diversity. This is the main idea of democracy. So crowds can be witless, but also wise. Common democratic participation, voting, or public deliberation among ordinary people can transform their biases into resources superior to the expertise of epistemic authorities. So there is very strong support of this, for this wisdom of crowds, and the democracy is actually based on that. So, for instance, there is a strong idea that ethically and politically virtues, inclusion, fairness, diversity, can be also epistemically virtuous act, and they produce actually the truth. My idea is, I would like to skip some points because I do not want to bother you with some details, but I'm not sure about that because it seems to me that all these phenomena I mentioned before, this radicalization of society, this Trump, Brexit, or the other phenomena, pseudoscience actually show us that democracy, participation, inclusiveness will not, like invisible hand, produce, the truth. It will produce, the epistemic quality if previously we have satisfied, a precondition that we have the epistemic, that we have the opinions of people that is of high epistemic quality. So if you gather just or to satisfy the criteria of diversity or participation, according to my opinion, and for instance, I rely here on the Goldman, it will not produce, automatically the truth. Also, probably for the phenomena of hegemony of common knowledge, I just mentioned some of phenomena. One reason that crowds are not as wise as it assumed is the hegemony of common knowledge. This is one special phenomena, very good explained by Prelate, Song, and McCoy. Even when people make independently judgments, they often work off the same information. When you average everyone's judgments, information that is known to all gets counted repeatedly once for each person, which gives it more significance than it deserves and draws out diverse source of knowledge. So, at the end, this is this common knowledge effect. The lowest common denominator denominates. So, the idea is, not only from Goldman, but also from this empirical research of these authors, that the wisdom of crowds proves somewhat reliable only under very specific conditions. The epistemic quality of persons' knowledge remains crucial. So the wisdom of crowds need, to be there is a precondition, this is that the epistemic quality of the person's knowledge. Also, there is a lot of empirical evidences about the consequences of the common knowledge effect. Then, the influence of the informed persons in the groups on the group making a decision is far smaller than we expect due to the impact of the common knowledge. Moreover, the informed people often refrain from entering into discussion or even insist on keeping their information private because of the common knowledge pressure and or the risk of social sanctions against dissidents. Also, there is other phenomena. Probably also you know about the Dunning-Kruger effect of, or the illusion of superiority, which also, show us that wisdom of crowds, that participation will not automatically produce the decisions of the best or the highest quality. Namely, what is the essence of this effect? Cognitive bias. Cognitively and evidentially less capable individuals are inclined to overestimate their capacities and possessions of information, as well as morality of their acts. So there is a kind of miscalibration of incompetent, and their miscalibration actually stems from an error about the self, whereas the miscalibration of the highly competent stems for an error about others. So the Dunning-Kruger effect actually shows us that the people who do not have enough expertise will evaluate or self-evaluate as a more, that they have the more expertise that actually they have. Also, we have the phenomena of information bubbles, echo chambers or epistemic bubbles, filter bubbles, alternate realities. So we live in the society in which, these echo chambers or the epistemic bubbles actually keep us, isolated from the different information. Political isolation in bubbles is the result of personalized searching due to non-transparent underlying algorithms. That the offered content excludes information in dissonance with their stances effectively isolates individuals in their own ideological and cultural bubbles. And we all live today in our cultural bubble, in our informational bubbles. So when we combine this with the phenomena of fake news or facts on the influential social networks, Facebook, Twitter, etc., the bubble effect has negative implications for civic debate and deliberation and decision-making in democracy. So in many explanations, they actually think that this is the main and the good explanation of the presidential elections in the US and Brexit and the other. I will skip this. I do not think that I need to argue more about that. But what I would like to say that there are many structural, epistemic, cognitive, and socially determined limitations that influence the epistemic quality of decisions in democratic decision-making process. So why the democracy does not produce the decisions of the best epistemic quality? Because all of these, we live in the society, in which we have structural, social media effects, but also our cognitive and epistemic biases that actually, influence our decisions, our opinions. So epistemic potential of democratic decision-making process is structurally, according to my opinion, limited. So, what is the solution? Which solution we can find after all? How to make the democracy, the system that could be politically and ethically good, also produce the epistemically good decisions. So, this is one methodology I would like to show to you. I like it very much, is inconsistent triad. So there is 3 statements that all is, let us say, good, but they cannot be taken together, So firstly, I said only those democratic procedures that generate epistemic quality to truth are epistemically justified. The second is that empirical research shows that democratic procedures do not generate epistemic quality and truth. And finally, we would like to say and think that democratic procedures are epistemically justified or need to be epistemically justified. How to combine this? And I think that there is the 3 approaches to that. The first is pessimism. Plato, Mill, Ahstrom V in contemporary, this is pessimism. They said, I think, according to my opinion, they will say only those democratic procedures that generate epistemic quality true are epistemically justified. Empirical research or the experience shows that democratic procedures do not generate epistemic quality. So what we need to do, and the Plato and the Mill and the other are pessimistic about democracy. They said that democratic procedures actually are not epistemically justified. There is the other approach, this is the optimistic approach. So, according to me, this is the Fabian Peter or the David Estlund there. They actually, it seems to me, they would like to sacrifice the first statement. They will say empirical research, our experience shows us that democratic procedures do not generate epistemic quality, do not generate the truth. But the democratic procedures need to be epistemically justified. This is the best system we actually had. What to do? They reject the first. Only those democratic procedures that generate epistemic quality truth are epistemically justified. They will actually replace with the idea that epistemic quality truth does not constitute the epistemic justification. They will say we need to have fairness, we need to have inclusiveness, and this fairness and inclusiveness will produce the epistemic quality. There is no other truth, beside that. And the final is something in between. This is my position, it's realism or not. I would like to say that only those democratic procedures that generate epistemic quality truth are epistemically justified, and justified generally. Democratic procedures are epistemically justified, but we need to focus on the second statement. Epistemic research shows us that democratic procedures do not generate the truth, but democratic procedures need to be improved to generate epistemic quality. So I would like to say that we have the crisis of democracy because we do not have the proper democracy. Proper democracy means that it is politically and ethically justified, but need to be more epistemically organized or differently epistemically organized. And this is my point. And actually, I would like to propose a kind of solution, reliability democracy, and in very trivial way, I would like to reduce my position on the really trivial level. I would like to say that we need more expertise, and we need to improve the role of the experts in the decision-making process without, to promote the elitism or something like that. So actually this, and I try to argue for that position, but I think that I do not have, how more time actually?
No problem at all.
Not problem, I can, pass. Okay, thank you. So I would like to argue for the division of labor, of epistemic labor between citizens and experts. So we need to rethink the role of experts in the democratic decision-making process. One of main reasons why the experts were excluded for all these debate is a kind of fear of authoritarianism, or that we privilege some elitistic groups, and I would like, to argue and to talk more about that. Why democratic procedures actually are usually contrasted with credulity to epistemic authorities, to experts, Always or usually we found out, these kind of reasons. Because the role of experts is anti-democratic. They will actually promote the anti-democratic character of privileging an elite. Or why democratic procedures usually are contrasted with credulity to experts, because they said there is a kind of intellectual character of epistemic. It is anti-intellectually relied or to be dependent on the authorities. So reliance on experts is depicted as a sign of political and intellectual weakness, a lack of critical thinking as a sign of gullibility, political and epistemic dependence, intellectual laziness, or even intellectual and ethical deficiency of servility. So, it is not, I was surprised, and also after many debates, about my book, that actually such an idea is very, very, it's predominant between people, and probably, our discussion will be also about that. what is the reason and what is the arguments of the people, of colleagues who actually, or the philosophers who would like to exclude the experts from the democratic decision making? Actually, they would like to say that there is no experts in politics. There are experts in science, but there is no experts in politics. You know? This is the area of plurality and equality where each stance or each bias is of equal value. And this is Fabienne Peter. The others say that even if there are experts in politics, privileging them would be anti-democratic. So no experts in democratic decision making. You know, in the political arena, it is not acceptable to privilege any group above others. You know, this is, for instance, Rawls, very famous John Rawls. The third would like to say that the experts are biased. Yeah, like all the other people, why to privilege experts when we have the biased citizens? So, for instance, the Philip Kitcher, very famous American philosopher, actually wrote that the intelligence of experts, the amount of information available to them, and the amount of time and effort they have devoted to the issue may not make up for the disadvantage created by their bias. So the experts are also biased. So this is the reason why, you know, they are theoretically contaminated, there are there is ideological contamination, and also we do not want to have the experts there because they are biased like any other citizens. The fourth reason why we need to exclude the experts from the democratic decision making is the value of egalitarianism. For instance, Foucault, you know, stressed that. He said that the virtue of autonomy and self-reliance has priority over credulity to experts, because we spurn the idea of being dominated by another person or of submitting to the will of others, both in intellectual agency and in the political and the social arena. So the egalitarianism is the primary value, and because of that, we do not want and do not need the experts in the democratic decision making. Also, some other very famous philosophers like Plato, Descartes, Locke, and Kant also claim that truth is dependent on the ideal of epistemic autonomy, not relying on the experts, not relying on the other people, not to be trustworthy to the epistemic and the other authorities. So a lot of our tradition, a lot of contemporary discussion actually, you know, show us and talk to us that experts are not desirable in the democratic decision making. But I do not really think that it is so, you know. I really, and this is my answers on that challenges. According to my opinion, experts are comparatively the most reliable guides to the epistemic quality. So the expert is an expert simply because she practices epistemic virtues better than others. Experts are superior in solving problems and forming true beliefs. Experts are also better at structuring and contextualizing that information. They are trained for that. So we cannot, you know, remove the idea of expertise and the experts. Experts are also better acquainted with appropriate methods of conducting research. So I think that experts exist, and experts also exist in the domain in the politics. And we cannot, you know, pretend that there is no people with the expertise and say, no, we do not want these people, you know, because they are definitely the people of the expertise. Experts should not be identified with the political elite. It seems to me that this kind of stereotype, probably with reasons, are the predominant. But I do not think that we need to identify the experts with the political elite. There is nothing that actually that connected the experts with the political elite. According to my opinion, experts are not the members of the ruling parties. Experts are not the masters of manipulation. Probably some of them, yeah, they are, yeah, but this is not the role of experts. Experts are not the members of democratic governments. Experts should be objective experts. Nothing in the definition of experts has the meaning that experts are reputational experts, so the people who are actually occupy the position of experts. But the experts should be objective, real experts. And experts are experts in a specific idea. There is no universal experts. So there is a lot of stereotypes and prejudices towards experts, So, and I can understand that. Because, it is probably a different situation in which, some experts misuse their position, or some people who pretend that they are experts actually, misuse the position and the privilege to be at the position of the experts. But there is nothing, at the position of expert that actually, in the substance need to require to remove them from the decision-making process. Yes, experts are biased, but not more biased than ordinary people. Although these objections has attained a certain degree of popularity, this is very popular objection. This attempt to portray experts as disproportionately biased is ineffectual in the absence of evidence that ordinary people are less biased than typical experts. Also, there is no reason to assume that ordinary people will be better in dealing with their own biases than experts would be. Yes, experts is biased, but like ordinary people, so why, to take into account the biases of people, but not biases of the experts. Egalitarianism. I also believe in the political, I have to admit, egalitarianism. But we need to be aware that egalitarianism implies extreme epistemic egoism that is actually not an epistemic virtue. And here's the quotation from the Linda Zagzebski. This is very nice for me. We all admit that some persons have more inherited intelligence than others, or have honed their intellectual skills to a greater degree than others, or have greater access to information in some domains. But we take for granted that these differences are not important for the way epistemologists approach epistemological issues, and they are not enough to ground authority in the domain of belief in an interesting and robust sense. So, egalitarianism actually, at some senses, produced the egoism. The idea that, we are all equal politically, we are all equal in our freedom, we need to be equal, but it does not imply that we are all equal in our knowledge, in our expertise. This kind of egalitarianism, epistemic egalitarianism cannot be derived from the political egalitarianism. And according to me, credulity to experts can be actually the epistemically autonomous agency. I do not believe that the credulity to experts is the epistemic vice. I think that it could be also epistemic virtue, that I actually recognize that other person is actually clever, smarter than me, that you possess the more information that I actually possess, and I say that is not relevant. My opinion is equal to your opinion. No. My critical and my epistemically virtuous autonomous thinking, would be that I would like to rely on your expertise, and this is my autonomous, decision that I would like to rely on you because I appreciate and value that you are better than me, and it's better for me and for epistemic purposes to rely on you. So, finally, what I would like you to propose, the reliability democracy, and actually I would like to propose the 5 criteria for the democratic procedures. So, the first is reliability, or the ratio of true and false decisions generated by this procedure. So when the democratic procedure will be good or acceptable, when the ratio of true and false decisions is in favor of true, the decisions that actually solve the problems. Power of democratic procedure. Power is the strength of the procedure that generates decisions. So some procedures are completely unfruitful. We can, for instance, debate sometimes the philosophical debates are not fruitful. They are actually do not have this kind of power. They are very enjoyable for all of us. But finally we finish with the two different positions that we cannot, resolve the disagreement. The disagreement is good, but, there is no decisions after all. So, but democratic procedures need to have this kind of, power that be fruitful in the sense that they can produce final decisions. Democratic procedures need to satisfy the criteria of fecundity, or the strength to produce the strength of the procedure to solve the problems for interested citizens. So democratic procedures will be good if the procedures actually, it's not good that only produce the decisions, but that these decisions solve the problem of the interested citizens. The procedure is good if it is efficient. What does it mean? That means that cost-benefit ratio is good. And also democratic procedures will be good if it is, enough, that satisfy the criteria of speed or duration, time, wherein the procedure solve the problem. The aspect of time is also relevant. So when we have the good democratic procedure, if they satisfy this reliability criteria. This criteria is not my criteria. This criteria is proposed before by Goldman, but I would like to apply this criteria also for the reliability democracy. And I would like to skip this just to say that when I'm talking about the division of labor between citizens and, I would like to skip that, citizens and the experts, I think that the first two criteria is that experts are better in this, satisfying these first two criteria, and the citizens are better in satisfying the last three criteria. So we need to have a kind of division of epistemic labor. So experts will be better in the reliability and power criteria. So they guarantee to us that, the procedure, that they guarantee that we could have, a problem, that we have the solutions of the problems, that their expertise guarantees to us some kind of epistemic quality. On the other side, we need the citizens, because they can evaluate whether the decision or proposed solution is definitely good for them. Whether the decisions solve their problems, whether they are efficient, whether they are on time, So we need to make kind of division of labor. So citizens need to prioritize the problems that need to be solved and monitor the results, and the experts generate the decisions that need to solve the problems of the citizens. So this is the criteria of reliability and power. So the final and the last slide. So my position, as you can see, is not the proper epistemology. So it belongs to the social epistemology. So it's not. I do not deal only with the question of the knowledge, belief, justification, but also with the topics of democracy, political virtues, and actually applied or regulative epistemology, try to generate guidance for epistemic practice. So, according to my opinion, social epistemology is the best candidate for the regulative or applied epistemology that can help, to all of us, how to be better in our everyday epistemic life and how to improve our actually democratic decisions. So, and I would like, to finish with this quotation from the Roberts and Woods. It is a response, applied and regulative epistemology is a response to perceived deficiencies in people's conduct and thus is strongly practical and social rather than just an interesting challenge for philosophy professors and smart students. This kind of epistemology aims to change the social world. So, thank you very much. Yeah.
Wow, a lot of material.
Yeah.
Thank you very much,
Sorry to be
Snježana.
extensive, yeah.
No, really very, very interesting. On my side, a couple of assumptions came to my mind. The first is from my father, that was not a real Democrat on his own, who always said, people, they don't deserve democracy. And the second one, I think you quoted yourself a little bit, democracy is an awful system, but it's the best we have. So your final discussion about experts and expertise is very up to date today in Italy. The debate is about professionals. We don't, people, better most of people, better many people, they think we don't need professionals in democracy. We need experts, but not professionals. So it's quite difficult to acquire expertise if you not act as a professional in a specific or difficult field. So your discussion is very is really centered and focused on the up-to-date debate in Italy. Thank you very much.